love children, and I feel responsible for where education is today. And I think most parents and grandparents should also feel responsible for the failures, because I didn't know. And I do kind of share that blame with other people for not telling me, but I take some of the blame myself, so I do take it personally. That I've dropped my kids into a world and I'm hunky-dory and I'm working every day, I'm trying to make ends meet, raise my children. I didn't know that education was failing them. You know, I didn't know. But now I do, and I'm the devil here, because I will definitely let everybody else know so that we can fix it. And Common Core is not the answer. You got it. Oh, perfect. But I won't be able to see it. I don't know how to do this without being able to see it. Okay. Yeah, if we can squeeze you guys or something. Let me get just a couple steps. There we go. First ask, why are we even considering national standards? I'm going to show you why we consider this. Because I think some people would like to blame our people in Columbus for doing this to us. And we kind of like to get mad at them, don't we? Like, you irresponsible people, why did you do this? Well, I'm going to explain to you why they were victimized. I call it that, they wouldn't. But victimized by Common Core. Why they were ripe for the picking, okay? Because I needed to understand that. I have asked, and I've had meetings with the president and the vice president of the Ohio School Board, and we sat around, we've asked them a whole lot of questions and told them why we disagree with Common Core. I keep asking them, why are you doing this? It doesn't make sense. Why are you doing this? And I'll tell you the answers in a few minutes that I finally have gotten. Okay? So whose agenda is this? I think we can all identify right now whose agenda it is. But this started a while ago. Yeah. This isn't the Obama administration's start. He's definitely wrapping it up. Okay? And what is the end product of all of this? Let me see if I can get this to go forward. I need to probably have one of you do this. It's not working for me. Can one of you just advance the slide, please? I need some batteries. Okay. So I want to show you this. George just said this. I showed this last month in the presentation. I'm going to show you those slides again right at the beginning, because you need to understand this to understand why we were ripe for the picking. Okay, so spending. Sorry, I moved the screen on you. But here's our spending since 1970 on education, all the way up to 2012. And here's our results in reading, math, and science as a nation. Flatline. Yep. Okay. See that? Okay. So everybody knows that. I mean, I'm getting these slides from the Ohio School Board. Not this one. This is Cato, but I get this same information from the Ohio School Board. So they're all admitting it. They've all been looking at this stuff. They know this is what's happening. It's happening exactly like this in Ohio too. So they see that. Strickland saw it. In fact, Governor Strickland was the one that obligated us to accept Common Core back in 2010. It was in his budget bill. He accepted Common Core in his budget bill. That was House Bill 1. And then a month later, the Common Core standards came out. So he obligated our state to participate in it without ever seeing it. Next slide, please. Okay, here again is the spending. And here's our SAT, so the upper level scores. Exactly flat. We have been throwing money at the system, hoping to get these to follow the spending. It's not happening. And as we flatline all these years, the other countries are passing us up. Next slide, please. Here's why I think this happens in the state of Ohio. And again, Ohio School Board and our Ohio legislators now know all this data. Thank goodness. They admit it. They've been admitting it for a while, not certainly loud enough for anybody to hear, but at least to each other, saying we got to do something. But this is years and years ago this started. But sorry, I'm doing that. It's tight in here. I'm not used to that, but you know what? Welcome everybody. It's just going to shake a little bit. But look, to be proficient in the state of Ohio, we have a lot of students that take standardized tests, right? They take them in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and then in 10th. They take these standardized tests. To be called proficient in 3rd grade in reading, a student only needs to answer 57% of the questions correctly. In 4th grade reading, a student only needs to answer 47% of the questions correctly, and they are called proficient. Now, proficient to me means that they're okay. And when I was getting these printouts, beautiful charted printouts home from my students, oops, I would look at those, and if my student was proficient, I thought, okay, they're good. They're average, they're good, I can work on it, but it's not an emergency. But if they came home with a score of 47, that would be alarming. And I would say it's an emergency. We need to address that. That's a problem. But see, because they call it proficient, and they give you the overall score that's in the hundreds, you don't know what percent that is. They don't give you what percent that is. That's not on the printout. So for years and years, we didn't know what they were scoring. The school district did. The state of Ohio did. But the parents didn't. And we're learning more. Look at 7th grade math. A student only has to answer 32% of those questions correctly, and they're called proficient. Now remember up here in 10th grade, this is OGT, 10th grade. To be proficient, they only need to answer 43% correctly. And in math, they only need to answer 43% correctly. Now for your school district to get a point on the 26 education indicators, only 75% of your students need to get that score. So it's a system that's not really accountable. It's a system that has no rigor, never has, and hopefully will. So the state started recognizing this, that we're not getting anywhere, guys. We're throwing money at it, not getting anywhere. They didn't tell anybody except themselves. So I think it made Strickland say, we got to do something. One of the things that Strickland did, and I'm not sure I told you this at the last meeting, was he did away with the master's degree requirement for teachers. He did, which is surprising because he did that back in 2009. So in 2009, September, they took it off the ODE website. It's no longer required. But in 2010, the ODE held a big seminar, and a lot of us got to go to it. Lots of teachers, administrators, school board members got to go. But they produced results that said that there are predictors to finding an effective teacher. And one of those was the master's degree was negatively correlated with teaching effectiveness. That's why Strickland did away with it. But they're still in our step schedules. That we're still paying some pretty large raises when that master's degree is achieved. So again, we're paying for it, so it still gets people to do it, but it's been proven to be ineffective for teaching. We've proven that years of service is negatively correlated with teaching effectiveness. So we have proof of some things, and I think Strickland saw that, didn't make it public, but also didn't make any kind of big changes. But I think then he said, well, you know what, maybe Common Core, these more rigorous standards, will help us. I think he was lured into that by seeing the results to what we've been doing.
Are you saying negatively correlated or uncorrelated?
Negatively correlated was what they presented.
Meaning their performance actually went down.
Yes.
Yes.
Teaching effectiveness performance went down with years of service and the master's degree. So what I got from the presentation was, okay, let's not use that to recruit and hire. We got to use something else. And they said specifically there are 3 things that can prove an effective teacher, and that's their exam score. They have a Praxis exam score, which is their score on a national standardized test, and the higher they score, the more effective teacher they've been proven to be. He said also their GPA in the program that they're in also proves that they're a more effective teacher if they've got a higher GPA. Also, the competitive nature of the school they attended improves teaching effectiveness. So there are 3 ways we can recruit now and hire. We've never used that before. And in fact, I don't think we're using it now. I keep asking, okay, what are you using? Well, she's well liked. or in one case, her parents work here. That was what we've been using. So anyway, I'm off the subject. Next slide, please. Sorry. I could easily do that. Yep, bring me back here, Kohls. Excellence in Ohio. This is from a report from Colleen Grady. Colleen Grady is an education expert. She knows more than I will ever know in education, but she produced this report with Ann Sheldon, and it was grading on a curve. I have a copy of it. I'll send anybody that asks me for a copy of the whole report, but it's beautiful. Here's what she's showing us, though, in this report. 2002, 2003, 85 school districts were excellent or excellent with distinction. Today, 352 districts are excellent or excellent with distinction. Her question in there is this a cruel hoax? These are her words, by the way. I'm not making these up, but it says, is this reality, illusion, or cruel hoax? Well, I think her conclusion is it's a cruel hoax, because what they tell you in the report is that this number is this number not because we're doing better on our standardized tests. That number is because we keep lowering the cut scores for what it takes to get that. So these percentages that the students have to get correct is lower and lower and lower. So more and more schools get it. Next slide, please. Again, you know, we've been playing this cruel hoax, and I'm glad our legislators are saying that it's a problem. How do we fix it? I think there are many other fixes that could have been implied, but then their voter base, at least with Strickland, might have been mad at them. Anyway, you know where I'm going. I can't say it out loud. Percent of Ohio students ready for college level work. Saying that in all four, wait a minute, college English, 71% of our students, according to the ACT, are ready for college level coursework. College math, only 49%. College reading, only 58%. And college science, only 35% of our students are ready for college level work. Next slide, please. Ohio education, what do we do? Next slide, please. You know, I'm going to have a little trouble reading this, but Lamar Alexander in 1989, some kind of legislator, I have a video of him saying this, and it didn't say where he was, but he was obviously a U.S. senator or representative, but he envisioned in his speech that the new schools would take babies from 3 months old to 18, and the schools would be open all year, not that I disagree with that, and be open from 6 to 6, not that I disagree with that. But 3 months, you kind of get where Obama's going with the preschool and lowering the age of when I'm going to capture that mind of that child, because this was a vision that was shared way back when. And it's a programmed step that they've learned the hard way that we can't present this as a national standard that doesn't go over well. We keep going because I'll explain that. This agenda started prior to the Obama administration, but escalated recently with the stimulus bill. 4.35 billion. Arnie Duncan said that stimulus bill of that amount he admitted that the money would be used as a catalyst for Common Core. This is years ago, in 2009, I believe. So they offered the stimulus bill, and here's what we go. They made a race to the top competition. Have you heard of race to the top? Competition, voluntary competition. 11 states were awarded some money. In November 2009, it was announced in November. You had to apply for the money, which was a really attractive, large amount of money for each state that applied. But it was due in January. So you had maximum of 2 months to get this application together. No time to research what it was. Just try to get the money. The state of Ohio accepted $400 million. They have spent $200 million of the $400 million. And they're scared to death today that they're going to have to pay it back if they opt out of Common Core. So that's the part, when you watch this video that George has, it's beautiful. It is complete. Please take the time and watch it a couple times. But I'm adding the parts to it that you won't see in her speech, okay? So I'm adding why Ohio was victimized and why Ohio now is having a really tough time trying to pull out. They're not. Right now they're not. We have to keep working our legislators to pull out. Lots of states are pulling out. And I was just invited, and I'm just numb at the thought, but invited to go to Dallas, be at a round table with Glenn Beck and David Barton and other states and the other people like me that are trying to fight Common Core in their state. I'm taking with me my invite Andy Thompson from our legislators, and he is a representative, and I don't know what area, but they asked me to bring somebody. He is drafting right now, it should be released in the next couple days, a bill to opt out of Common Core. So we have to support him, keep telling everybody vote with Andy, but I'll keep George informed, and I hope he keeps you informed, because only us talking to them will change their minds. They're afraid of losing $200 million. We'll talk about that again in a minute. Next slide, please. Okay, so we held a Common Core debate. If you go to OSBLC, I've got a flyer there. It's my organization. There's a bunch of us school board members from across the state that formed this organization. All we're trying to do is educate the public about the education issues. We're all volunteers. We don't get a dime. We actually spend all of our own hard-earned money trying to get this thing going and get people educated. We don't mind donations at all. We don't mind membership. Membership is for everybody. It helps me publish these kinds of things for you. But we held a Common Core debate in April. We had 3 proponents and 3 opponents. And it was beautiful. It's 2.5 hours. Just click on it. You watch it 15 minutes at a time. I know 2.5 is way too much. I couldn't do it either. But you will see C. Todd Jones. He's a gentleman that's on the Ohio School Board. And he says some really important things on there because he's a supporter. And then I had a representative from the Fordham Institute who's also a supporter. The Fordham Institute, remember, got $6 million, over $6 million so far from the Bill Gates Foundation to support Common Core. Even so, there's some cool things that they've said that are very, very good for us to use. But anyway, C. Todd Jones on the Ohio School Board says a couple things that are in this pamphlet I gave to you. And what he says in there is that he believes Common Core will crumble. Okay, when we're talking about all the money we've been spending and all the money we will spend, which is hundreds of millions, I have to ask C. Todd Jones, when will it crumble? Will it crumble before we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on the literature, the textbooks, the materials and supplies, and professional development? Or will it crumble after we spend that much money? I believe it will crumble also, if we keep up the pressure. So let's stop it now. Let's stop wasting our money on a nationalized, federalized federal takeover of education. So there's one. He also said that the Common Core standards, because everybody you talk to at the state level will say, what's the big deal? It's just standards. You teach to whatever you want to teach to. I'm the president of a school board. And I'm telling you that I've asked them point blank. If I went back to my district and said, we're not going to accept those standards, we're going to do our own thing, I said, would that be okay with you, Ohio School Board? And Tom Dunlop, Vice President, said yes. Yes, Kelly, you can do that. Deb Turhart, the President of the Ohio School Board, said, but I wouldn't do that. I said, why? He said, well, your students are going to fail the exam. That's right. Because the textbooks are all Common Core compliant, and if they don't learn that evolution is fact, and they go to the test and they say, well, there's some questionable, it's a controversial issue, something like that, they're going to fail that exam. Because they haven't learned what is in that book, they've learned something else, they're not going to pass the exam. So we're not, as a school district, any of us, able to opt out of this. The state has to opt out of it. We have no choice. Pearson, if you go to Pearson, which is the publishing company that publishes most of the K through 12 textbooks, if you go to Pearson Acquisitions, you will see that they have purchased 18 other publishing companies across the globe. They let them keep their names. So it looks like there's competition in textbooks. It looks like you have choices. But it's really just one company. Okay, so let me keep going. I did this as a professor. I got way off subject. That Kohls, bring me back. What are you talking about? Sorry. But anyway, so when I asked Tom Dunlop, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? It makes no sense. Because even the Fordham Institute, I'm going to get away from my slides, but even the Fordham Institute paid over $6 million to support these standards, these written standards, and they really are just frou-frou gobbledygook words. So why are they such a problem for you? Well, Fordham Institute evaluated them, the Common Core standards, and they looked at every single state and they graded every single state. And what the Fordham Institute published, it's on, I think it should be on their website, they published it in 2010, they showed that Common Core standards were rated by them as a B. But there were 6 other states that rated A's, that had standards that exceeded Common Core's. Common Core standards were written by some organizations, I'll get to that, but they're not state-led organizations. They're government organizations that wrote these standards. So these standards have never been tested, never been piloted. We don't know what they mean. We don't know what they equal. We just know that Common Core standards are meant to guide curriculum. And so when I say, you know, you can write a beautiful bunch of sentences and paragraphs, means nothing. It's how you translate it. And more importantly, it's how that translation fits the exam. Because if you ever want to take over a country, guys, you do it with the exam. So guess who's writing the exam? The federal government is writing the exam. So I said, can I write the exam? You know, Deb and Tom, can you let me on that group and I'll write the exam for our students? No, absolutely not. It's not up to us to write that exam. So those standards really don't mean anything. But C. Todd Jones said exactly what the truth is. He said that they're not the problem. Those written words, not the problem. It's that Obama has co-opted and tried to take over education through those words. So they start out fairly benign, just a bunch of beautiful words. They're going to add rigor. It's going to be good for our students. It says who? There's never been a pilot. You've never used them in anything. But Massachusetts, Indiana, Texas, Tennessee, District of Columbia, and California all have standards that the Fordham Institute rated as A. So if we have A state standards, why aren't we adopting one of those? Why are we adopting something that's never been tried, never been tested, written by the, trust me, national or federal government? Why are we doing that? Again, I keep telling them it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Why are you doing this? Okay, the answer is we took money. We're under contract. We took Race to the Top money. Ohio applied and was not given money the first time around. Ohio applied again and got $400 million for Race to the Top. We've spent half of that money. They are afraid that if we say we're opting out, the federal government comes in and says, okay, then pay back the $200 million. That's what I said. I said,
Come and get it.
Yeah, come and get it.
that's what I said.
I
I said, Tom, am I the only one between us that is a boy? Anyway, listen. I'm the only boy in this group. Anyway, let's have some nerve here. I said, Tom, honestly, tell him to bring it. Because I've done that. I get it almost every board meeting. I'll get it tomorrow night too. I tell people bring it. Because the federal government, let's just have movies of kids using beat up old textbooks that are all ragged. Let's show them walking in snow, 3 feet of snow to school because we can't afford buses, and say, well, it's because the federal government came and took our money. Let's use this PR thing, let's do it. Let's come back and take $200 million, and let's show our kids in, a bucket next to them, it's leaking right on the table next to them. Come on. We can do this. Tell them to bring it. Come on, yeah, let's do it. Anyway, or that'd be the worst PR move they've ever made. And we can make it happen. Right, guys? We know how to do it. We can do this. So anyway, the other thing he said in the video, if you watch it, was that Obama's administration has come in, and you all know the No Child Left Behind Act, okay, was put in place in 2001 by Bush. Okay, and during that time, every state panicked and said, oh my gosh, we'll never meet this act. We'll never meet this mandate. We need a waiver. And they wrote a contractual agreement to get out of the act by saying, we will do these things. And they were all granted the waivers, except for Massachusetts didn't even apply. Massachusetts said, we're going to take our lumps. We're going to show everybody that we're not doing our job. And we're going to improve ourselves. And we're going to be at the top. Guess what? Massachusetts leads the country, because they took their lumps back in 2001. All of us have had waivers, and we've been able to produce proficiency results like I just showed you, and been presenting a hoax to our taxpayers. So let's do this. No Child Left Behind Act, then I think it was 2009, Obama came in and said, okay, we're going to make this a little harder for you. It might have been 10. But said, we're going to make this a little harder for you. Now, in order for you to comply with the act, 100% of your students need to meet this kind of benchmark. And again, states said, there's no way. We never do that. And we're going to have to admit that we're not meeting these benchmarks. So we need a waiver again. Guess what they said is your waiver? Common Core. Yeah, you can get your waiver if you use Common Core and PARC. I hate to use the word, I just don't want you to be deceived. If I say PARC assessments, I'm talking about the test, the standardized test. They call it PARC assessments because it's a little softer wording, not in the test. It's the test. Let's just face it. Kind of like step raises aren't raises. Yes, they are. So we'll get over that. But so our states all applied, and so when I asked Tom Gunlock, why are you doing this? There were 2 reasons. The Race to the Top, money, and we are under contract. That's how we got our waiver. So we promised that we would take Common Core and PARC assessments. So it doesn't matter that other states had standards, written standards that exceeded us, and that they're doing better. We had to take this, so we were duped. So they admitted we're in an emergency situation, we're doing so poorly in education, we've got to do something, let's use this. Because when we get money until we get a waiver. Okay, so that's where we are today, unfortunately. So it expired in 2007, and if Congress fails to reauthorize it, escalate. Oh, by the way, Obama told them all that if you don't meet this benchmark, we will now take some of your Title I money. So there were sanctions, financial sanctions for not meeting that act. And so again, the state said, well, we're not going to lose Title I money. We all get, every school district gets millions of dollars of Title I money. We can't afford to do without that. Will be an emergency immediately. So again, it's that carrot that was used. Okay, in the absence of its reauthorization, the Obama administration has offered states waivers from the law's most stringent parts in exchange for agreeing to specific portions of the Obama education agenda. That's Common Core. 37 states have received waivers. When I go to Dallas, I'm going to meet with other leaders in every state who are working on fighting Common Core. And according to the person setting this up, most states are trying to fight this. So we're not the only ones. We're not alone. And when C. Todd Jones says it's going to crumble, I hope so. But let's stop making schools adopt it. Because Pearson is busy writing the textbooks that we all have to adopt. We're going to have to buy all new textbooks. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, what's been done in the last few years? Okay, let me go through this fast, and I may just roll through the next slides because I'm talking too much. But I will send this PowerPoint to anybody that asks, and it's got a whole lot of information. So when you want to write your letter, or you want to make a call, use some of these points that I've got in here. It would be good, effective to use them. But what we have done in the state of Ohio, and I'm grateful. So I am not going to badmouth our legislators or the Ohio School Board. They've done wonderful things. So let me tell you what they've done. But when they applied for Race to the Top and when they applied for the waiver, they used 6 different things. Common Core and Park are just 2 of the 6. But they have used, 1, the 3rd grade reading guarantee. If you haven't heard about it, it's where all students, 100% of the students, must read at a certain benchmark or certain proficiency level to be able to move to the next grade. That's a great thing. Because when I asked our superintendent, when he was applying for a job, my interview question to our candidates were, did you know that we had a 23% remedial rate? Our students graduating to get into college, 1 in 4 have to take a remedial course to get into college. Hey, that's extraordinary because we match UA in our academics. I mean, UA is a stellar school system with an incredible bunch of students, smart, smart parents, smart community. So we shouldn't have that. So, and I said, well, Mr. Petrie, and we did end up hiring him. I said, so what's going on? What do you think? He said, well, Dr. Kohls, that's happening at the younger years. He knew that because he was a principal at our school years before that, and he had identified children at risk, he identified the deficiencies, and he was frustrated and left our school district because nobody would listen to him. But he knew that's where it's happening. Obviously, our legislators believe that's where it's happening, and that's why we need so much remedial. So they've said, you have to do this thing. And every school is panicking, because it will cost us a lot of money, and we will have to do things we've never done before at the 2nd grade level. But it's all good. I'm grateful. That's what we have to start doing, identifying the deficiencies and addressing them. Secondly, they're using an A through F grading system. I showed you that 75% of your students need to meet those certain proficiency levels to get a point. The difference is in the A through F grading system, they use a few more indicators and they use a few more things to guide it, but more specifically, your school districts have to have 80% of your students that meet that proficiency. Not a big change. It should be doable, but the A through F will help us identify that we're not all perfect. All these excellent distinction now will get a B, a C, and they'll start to say, okay, Houston, we have a problem, let's address it. I'm grateful for that piece. 3, OPES, and that's the teacher and principal evaluation systems. They have said you must have it in place in the next 2 years. I'm grateful for that. Okay, absolutely overdue. House Bill 165, actually I put that on there wrong, it's Senate Bill 165, sorry about that. 165 tells all of us, all school districts, that you must have an exam in place by next week, July 1st, this year. And that exam must measure a student's knowledge of the original context of the 6 founding father documents. So, I know, I'm so grateful. Because our lives are made so much easier as school board members because we're just going to say, well, the state's telling us. Because every time we try to change any policy that regards curriculum, we get slammed with people saying, that is not your expertise, that is not your business. Well, it is. It's in the Ohio Revised Code that it is the school board's responsibility to dictate what the curriculum is. So every time we try to change a little piece and say, you must teach the original context, we get that firestorm of, what are you doing bothering our teachers? And well, because the state says, in this case, the state says we have to go back to the original context of the documents. And they believe we haven't been doing it. I'm grateful. Then I can say, hey, the state thinks we haven't been doing it. So help me out here, guys. You got to do it. Anyway, we're having a firestorm about that right now in our district. That's probably why some people will show up tomorrow night. And I'm happy to hear what they have to say. Doesn't mean I change my convictions or principles. Still have a seat. Nope. Sorry. Complaints. Okay. Complaints about these 4 is that they don't involve enough teachers. But those are the complaints about these as well. Not enough teachers involved. I agree. But however, we sometimes have to say, look, the educational system, higher ed, is training our teachers. And their orientation has been to pull them away from the original context of the Founding Father documents. So the teachers don't always know what's been going on because they're trained not to know what's going on. So sometimes we have to have a reality check and we get some pushback, but it's necessary. The 5th thing they obligated us to in those 2 pieces, that's Race to the Top and the waiver, was Common Core and the assessments. We are under contract. I don't care what anybody tells you about Governor Kasich's budget bill. They'll say that they took Park out. Guys, they took the word P-A-R-C-C out. That's it. We are under contract with Park. We have to do Park. That's what I was told. So I keep saying, did you take the word out? No. The budget line is still the $10 million it's always been. That was not changed. Just the word was out so everybody would feel good. Come on, we're not dumb. We're not that dumb anymore. We used to be. I used to be a little bit more informed now, and it didn't involve enough citizens. Totally agree with that. We need more citizens like us involved. So you might have to assert yourself in this process. Please do. Please, for the children. Next slide, please. Okay, 3rd grade. Let's go through these. Keep going. I'm not going to spend time. I pretty much talked about it. Keep going. Keep going. Next. Oh, this is an interesting slide because I got it from Tom Dunlop. He came to our school and gave a really nice presentation. But he's saying that right now there are this many school districts who are excellent and excellent with distinction. If they put the A through F grading system in, it's just a simulation at this point. It's not going to happen until next year. But only 22 districts would be A. And that's with only changing that 80% of your students have to reach proficient instead of 75. Really, and it would boom, totally put everybody. But I'm grateful for it. I'm sure you all are also, because now we're starting to be honest. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, SB 165. Next slide, please. I think I just told you about that. What that means. Common Core. The purpose was to impose nationally recognized, rigorous, supposedly, standards so our students can be competitive in the global job market and can be compared to students in other states. Sounds good? Yes. Okay. Okay, I buy it. It just, if it came out of Obama's mouth, probably not, but if it comes out of the Ohio School Board's mouth, we're going to say, okay, that sounds good, right? We're being, I think, coaxed with our own kind of sense of, okay, that sounds good. We need to stop being so gullible. So far, it's adopted by 45 states and the District of Columbia. In the past, the key players in this national global education takeover, the progressives such as Achieve, National Governors Association, NGA, and CCSO, which is the Chief Council of State School Officers, they own the copyright. These groups own the copyright to Common Core. So I often get the question is, can the school district take part of Common Core and then play with it? The answer is no. If you accept Common Core, which we all have to, you accept it 100% as is. You cannot change any part of those standards because you don't own the right to do that. You can add 15% to it, right? So I'm being told that by everybody up there in Columbus. You can add your own 15%, Kohls. The problem is, let's say we decided that we wanted, well, I'm not going to use this word because the ACLU is probably over me right now with a satellite. I've gotten letters from them lately, and then freedom from religion letters from them, threatening letters. That's okay, because we have lawyers here standing by to defend us. But let's say we wanted to teach something that is not in Common Core. We thought it was important. Let's say it's calculus, because the Common Core doesn't leave room for calculus. Did you know that? Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't leave room for calculus. In a lot of the upper level schools, the higher ranking schools, you need calculus to apply. Okay, so all my kids had calculus. It's really important, but Common Core didn't give it room. Anyway, let's say we wanted to teach calculus, right? The assessment, the test doesn't test for that. So how many schools are going to offer calculus if the test doesn't test for it?
Not many.
No. So calculus is kind of out. So we can add it if we want, but the test isn't going to test for it. It's not likely school districts are going to put the money in that curriculum. Okay. So where am I? Okay, in the 1990s, they tried to create, this is the federal government, tried to create national history standards. But it was stopped after our U.S. Senate rejected it 99-1. Their statements were it was so blatantly left-leaning progressive, none of them could vote for it. They saw that. And even the Fordham Institute, I just got an email today, even the Fordham Institute rates our science standards from Common Core, not ours, Ohio didn't accept them, but rates Common Core science standards as a C. Ohio's standards were rated as C by the Fordham Institute. So again, why would we change any of our science standards, that written, fluffy, frou-frou, why would we change that at all if ours are a C and theirs are a C? We won't. Now the Ohio School Board says that we will not adopt Common Core's social studies and science. We're only adopting English language and math. Okay, my question is, why aren't we then? Why are Common Core social studies and science not for us? The reason was, it's too controversial. Right. So if those two subjects were so left that our legislators couldn't accept them, why are we thinking that the math and English would be any different? You know, when they pull a lot of the Founding Father documents out of it as part of the literature they have to read, they pull a lot of the classics out of the reading list and say you must now read technical documents, instruction books, menus. Oh my goodness, our teachers aren't prepared to teach that.
Do you have a list of that?
Yeah, and when you watch that video that George has, please get it from him. She's got that list. She's got some beautiful talking points in there too. And there's a couple of videos, George, if you remind me, where in, I think it was Tennessee, one of the teachers was going through one of the workbooks. Right now, Ohio has only accepted K through 3 Common Core standards. Those are the books we're using in the race to the top schools. Ours isn't one of them. But one of the teachers goes through the books and shows some of the ridiculousness of the Common Core curriculum. Might have been Utah, yeah. And there's another video that's awesome, and she's from Tennessee. And she's very, very articulate too. So I'd suggest you start watching these videos and really send them to the legislators over and over and over again. Watch this video. Watch these workbooks as you go through. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. They tried in 1990, rejected 99-1, was seen as anti-American and too politically correct. Lessons learned from them was that you don't call them national, you call them state. So they learned from this little history lesson here, that don't call them national. They also said you got to start with less controversial subjects such as English and math. That's part of what their marketing firm told them in an analysis. Okay, do these and do it fast, quietly, so nobody knows. That's exactly what happened. I just found out what this was in January. And I'm a school board president. So that means that only because I'm interested have I done the homework, but most school boards don't. Remember, they're paid a whole whopping $125 per meeting. Are they going to quit their full-time job and go do the research? Doubt it. They're usually going to show up and say yes to everything on the agenda, because that's what their paycheck tells them to do. Really. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, who's behind it? Unaccountable outsiders. Bill Ayers, very involved, violates 3 federal statutes. Gates Foundation has spent over $300 million in every facet of this Common Core. think about it, guys. What would Bill Ayers have? What would his foundation have an interest in? Why? I mean, it's not out there in the literature. You won't find it. It's just something I had to sit and think about myself. Is it really just a philanthropic idea? Or did you know that every student has to take their test on a computer? Every test is offered on a computer. And guess what? Pearson, who bought all those publishing companies, their books are online. You have to have a computer to read your book, right?
You said Bill Ayers. Did you mean Bill Gates?
Bill Gates, sorry,
Okay.
thank you. Bill Gates Foundation, so the Gates Foundation. Okay, so every child has to have a computer now. That's what this is setting up for. So the tests are online, the books are online. What's left of the formula that somebody doesn't really think about? What's left in education? The teacher. Have you seen the videos where the teacher is on the screen teaching? Virtual school, pretty much? Yeah. And where you just have kind of like a monitor walking around the class to make sure everybody's working? I'm not sure that the teachers union is thinking this far ahead, but I am. And if they were, they'd think, oh, wait a minute, that's not what we thought, you know? Because it's not that far-fetched, I don't think. Gates Foundation Achieve is established by the National Governors Association, so it's just one of them. Pearson Corp from the United Kingdom is buying up all publishing companies, not changing the name so that we don't know it's the same radical progressive Pearson Publishing. Now they have been caught in Texas, I think it was, with some really left-wing book, and when it was pointed out, they said, oh, that was done by mistake. Now to remember that, because Texas, did you know Texas outlawed, they actually produced and passed a bill that outlaws Common Core and C-Scope. They said, we want no part of this, because they started seeing it early on, what was happening. So they said, we want no part of this. They're out completely. And so are many other states are rolling it around. Am I getting like, can you just tell me like 5 minutes? Because I could go on for a long time. So, okay, Pearson, ACT, SATs will all be aligned with Common Core. So those upper level college entrance stuff. Yes?
That's going to be the problem.
What's that?
How are we going to oppose Common Core if they're going to lie the ACT and SAT?
I mean, if they capture that, it's a done deal.
It's a crumbling more than half the country. So then, if they do that, those states that adopted it can take this ACT and SAT, and then there'll be a different one for the rest of us. We have to address that. Glenn needs to address that, and so does everybody else.
That means that the states have to develop their colleges.
States have to run their own colleges.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're and they don't use ACT or SAT.
Yeah, well, what else are we
They
going to
make their own.
use?
I took an entrance exam when I first started
Yeah.
college. And they call it.
College education.
College is on.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that idea. That's a great idea. See, this is great.
What are they expecting to have ACT and SAT change?
Well, see, we don't, that's some of the stuff I said at the beginning, we don't know, because it's not been determined yet. I had heard just a couple years. Park assessments are so far behind, they were supposed to be online, I thought it was next year. But they've now postponed it a whole other year. So I know we haven't gotten far enough to answer a lot of these questions. I think the test means everything. And the fact that we don't have it in front of us, how can we accept something and buy into the whole program if we've never seen the exam?
You got to
I
vote
want to
on
see
it.
the exam.
You got to vote on it before you understand what.
Yeah, that's right. Common Core. And Common Core has to be in all schools. So all the Catholic schools have adopted it. Everybody's moving forward on that. All homeschoolers, all Catholic, everybody's going to adopt Common Core. All the textbooks are going to be written for Common Core, okay? Well then, why do we need school choice? I mean, if you're a school choice proponent, then this is going to destroy our opportunities for school choice. And school choice is the only thing that's going to fix what ails education that I showed you. That's the only thing that'll fix it. Get some competition and free market principles, that corrects everything in education. So Common Core will totally destroy that. So our legislators who are pro-school choice, ask them, how can you reconcile Common Core, accepting Common Core standards with your stand on school choice? Yeah, man-made global warming, that's in our controversial topic policy that we're getting brief about. But the ACLU has a real issue with us in our controversial issue policy. We dare to propose that students should be taught both sides of controversial issues. Let me tell you, we're all scrambling now. All of us conservatives, I think, are scrambling to try to write policies to combat some of what's going to happen. So we're trying to write policies that say we want our students to be taught both sides of controversial issues. We've always had that policy. Almost every school does, but they don't listen to it. So we're trying to bring it up and say, okay, guys, not only is sex education a controversial issue, which that's one of the only things listed in our current policy, so is evolution / we dared to write the word creation. Not creationism, just creation. And a firestorm started. I have letters from across the country about what a whack job we are for trying to do such a thing. Wait a minute. And then we have support letters, trust me, we have plenty of support letters, but who'd have thought that having the word creation in a policy would create so much fear and animosity when all we're trying to do is give the teachers the academic freedom to say that there's controversy around evolution, there's controversy around man-made global warming, and I want the teacher to be able to bring that controversy to class. Common Core wouldn't allow that. We're trying, that's right, we're trying to create policies that give some academic freedom that Common Core is going to destroy. And we're getting tremendous pushback. That's why we need school choice. I keep saying this controversy is evidence that we have to have options for parents. Because I want to opt into a school system that has a philosophy that my family does. And I don't want my science teacher telling my children that their parents and their church are liars. Because if you teach evolution is fact, then you're telling that student that what your parents and church are saying is hooey. That's not true, this is fact. I want the teacher to be able to say, no, there's holes in this one. There's holes in evolution. Let me try to talk you through it. Anyway, off the subject. This is what PARC stands for, Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Career. That sounds wonderful. We want our students ready for college and career, don't we? Okay, Smarter Balance is another assessment consortium, but we chose this in the state of Ohio. So there's two. We're under contract with PARC, all online. They're all up. You all need computers to do it. Needs are tremendous for the computer. Tremendous needs. It'll cost us taxpayers the last dime we're hanging on to. Ohio signed on to PARC and must be taking the test by 14-15. And again, I just said I think they postponed it another year, which is good. Race to the top and no child left behind. Next slide. Okay, who develops and pays for this effort? That's a problem. We can go through this real quick. We don't know. But the $300 billion that was given to PARC and Smart Balance, the federal government gave them $300 billion to get this going. So initially the test is being written by federal government, paid for by the federal government. You understand where we're going here? Yeah. Okay, and the states had nothing to do with this test. And then though, as soon as that money runs out, and it will, guess who gets the bill to keep it going? Right. And the estimate from that video George was showing as people were walking in is that it will cost you at least $100 per pupil more, which is triple, on average, triple what the costs are right now for taking the tests. So it's very expensive. We're right now in our budget, we just allocated, I think it was $2.5 million over the next couple of years to buy the computers we need to take PARC assessment. We actually had the money already in the budget, but other school systems are going to be hard-pressed. We'll have to negotiate an agreement that they can afford, minus that couple $1 million. That's my opinion. It's not the union that didn't mature. Linda Darling Hammond, a radical Stanford professor. Bill Ayers, colleague of the and opposes standardized testing, prefers journalism because it's become about how you feel. So what's confusing to students is that we feel sympathy for the polar bears that are having less ice, but we can murder an unborn child.
Right.
So I think we're creating a whole lot of internal confusion. Polar bears sad, unborn babies. Yes. So, I really don't like what's being taught now, and I think this is going to propel it into the universe. All right. The ODE presentation. Okay, I know what I wanted to say here. The Ohio Department of Ed, again, is the strong proponents of this, and that's because the Ohio School Board is telling them to support this. So they have a number of talking points that it's more rigorous. So when they say these things, it's more rigorous. It makes our students college and career ready. I want you to read through some of what I've got on here. Cassandra Stosky was the author of the English language standards in Massachusetts. Remember? The state that is doing far better than any other state. She wrote them. She was on the Common Core Validation Committee. She was the only expert in English language on that committee, and she refused to sign off on those standards. She said it does not do what they say they're going to do. What they create is a bunch of empty skill sets, and that they will put our children significantly behind other countries if we abide by that. That's Sandra Stotsky. I think she's a professor at Arkansas. And then there's this James Milgram, another guy who was on the math validation committee. He's the only mathematician on the committee, and he's a professor, I believe, at Stanford. He said that he refused to sign off, and it'll put our children back at the 7th grade math level. And because instead of teaching algebra at 8th grade, which is the norm, it should be the norm for all schools, they'll be teaching algebra at the 9th grade, which then pushes calculus completely out of their schedule. So the two experts on the validation committee said, I'm not signing that. And what does the Fordham Institute have to say about that? When we talked to Terry Ryan, we were at a meeting, very frustrating little meeting, but it was the Ohio School Board President, Vice President, Terry Ryan from the Fordham Institute, Emmy Gordon from the Fordham Institute. And Terry Ryan said, oh, she has personal problems. Now, does anybody else get like a flag, a light that goes off when somebody goes personal and makes it character assassination rather than the facts? You know they got nothing.
Right.
So he immediately disqualified himself as being an expert in anything when he went personal. Right? Didn't that work that way for everybody else? Trust me. The other side, my opposers have nothing but personal attacks. They can't talk about anything of substance. So when they go there, you have to say, okay, you're done. You have nothing of value to say to me if that's where you're going. So that's what he said about her. Milgram, he didn't have anything to say because I don't think he'd ever met him, but kind of interesting how that works. So they can say all this rhetoric, they'll use this, and it sounds all good. But I want the teachers to understand they were not included in this process, and I'm not sure they'll be included in the future of education. Might just be me. I don't think so. We're not typically wrong. I mean, we never thought that the IRS would target us, did we?
Yeah.
We didn't think a lot of things that are now coming true, so I don't think our imagination can run too far. Okay, that's it, guys. Any questions?
Homeschooling movement, how's it going to affect it the most?
We went from 8,000, and I think it was just 5 years ago, 8,000 students in the state of Ohio that were homeschooled to now 47,000. It's skyrocketing.
That's
I wonder why.
In just a few years.
That's wrong.
And I tell you what, I will pull my students out as soon as we accept Common Core and start breaking in the curriculum. I'm pulling them out. I only have 2 left in there, 3 are in college, but they're coming out with me, much to their dissatisfaction. I think it's 5 years, but if you go to school choice, you'll see all that data. But the homeschoolers are asking the same exact question. It's one of those that I'm telling you we don't have the answers to. Our understanding from the Ohio School Board on that day that we met, I had 2 homeschoolers with me in my group. I had another teaching expert, and I had a legislative expert with me, so about 5 of us met before them. They asked that same question. And we were told, in essence, kind of in a roundabout way, that yes, homeschoolers they'll use the same materials. And you'll have to teach that to pass the test. So you can do it at home, but it's the same stuff. So again, homeschoolers should be very alarmed because the whole reason you pull your child out of school is because you think you can do a different and better job.
Is there any redeeming quality at all, either socially, educationally, or financially with Common Core on it and its implementation?
George, I can find nothing. And that's why I keep asking them, why are you doing this? Where's the positive? I don't see it. You've got a bunch of beautiful words. Increase rigor. Don't we want our children to compete globally? Absolutely. But then raise the cut scores that it takes to get proficient. That's the one biggest thing we can do is stop accepting mediocre as excellent. That's what we've been doing wrong. We've been letting them fail. So I say Common Core doesn't change any of that.
You was to point the finger at one component that could make a difference. What would that component be?
In Ohio education,
Right.
and our success, accepting cut scores, accepting those low ones, I say bring them up at least 20%. And let the school districts deal with poor scores and call it a poor score and address it.
You know,
We have no accountability to it.
I mean, so what can we do now that we know this to make a difference? How can we make that? We need to stop this thing, in my opinion.
Okay, so one of the things you can do is elect school board members that will do their homework, do the work, are passionate about children, and passionate about making education better. The problem that you're going to have in finding them, those people, is that there's no money in it. It's $125 per meeting, and like I said, nobody's going to quit their full-time job to do the homework. The system is set up to have them show up to the meeting and say yes to the agenda. That's it. But our school board is, I think, very, very unique. We do a lot of research because our mindset, because I'm board majority, there's a lot of us conservatives like me, our mindset is that we want to find the deficiencies and address them and hold people accountable. That's not typically what we're electing to school boards. They're thinking, well, I'm paid $125, that means I come in and say yes. So I'd say elect good school board members, but the whole system has to be revamped. I'd say one thing that will cure all that ails education in the state of Ohio and across this country is competition. I'm sorry.
Kelly, can you explain, kind of just summarize where Common Core is in Ohio, what the status is, and what we need to do to stop it?
Okay, I'd say keep on your legislators. You can't do the district can't pull out. They don't even know what it is. They don't come to these meetings. You know, they don't know what it is. They don't know how bad it is. My school board, for example, and you know, there are 4 of us that are real conservative school board members, but I presented a resolution that would go to the state and we would tell them to postpone implementation. That's all we're asking. Postpone implementation for a couple of years. I knew I couldn't get my school board to agree to tell them to opt out. And you know, we only had 2 of us that said yes. So even in a very enlightened school district, the fear factor is huge. So don't go to your school district. I think you're wasting your time.
What about the
Go-
state school? The
State
board?
school board you had was the one that adopted it. Our legislators never voted on it. Never have they voted on it. It's never been in front of them. The Ohio School Board told Strickland to put it in there. That's who told him to do it. So that's where we have to target.
Isn't the
I have not talked about data mining. I'll tell you what, I went to a church just recently and I was giving a presentation way up north. And a friend went with me who's a supporter of mine for some other things I'm doing. And when somebody talked about data mining and the iris scans and all that, I said that I think our imagination is not that far-fetched on this stuff. We might be stretching it, but when you've got a laptop in front of you and you have a camera right here, what is so far-fetched about that?
It's not.
So, but on our ride home, he said, Kelly, that was over the top. So,
Oh, no.
whatever.
No doubt.
But I don't think, honestly, my imagination goes because I'm seeing it. It's happening.
Well, it's
So
the data.
sorry, I don't know anything about the data mining. I know that we're under contract to give it.
I mean, they'll know.
We are under contract. When we applied for these things, we're under contract to give it to them. And so Andy Brenner is drafting, it's House Bill 181, and he just proposed it. And it's where he's proposing that the Ohio state legislators come up with a law that says we will not share our data. The problem is if you have it and you're going to be sanctioned with Title I money, or they have this golden carrot and a whole different legislature is in power, why wouldn't they give it up? I just don't think they should be collecting it. Because if you collect it, I mean, just not long ago, our curriculum director, I think, accidentally hit a button and I got data I wasn't supposed to have. I didn't ask for it. I thought, oh, I have every student's information here. I'm not supposed to have it. I don't want this. You know, my liabilities are too huge. But a push of a button by accident, and everybody can have everything. So I just don't think we should collect it.
What kind of data is it?
You know, on these videos, you'll see the kinds of things that they suggest are being collected. But on some of the federal documents I've been kind of just perusing recently, just today, it said something about states have obligated themselves when they pass this Common Core and Park assessments to relinquish the data they collect, and there are numerous points that we don't currently collect. So the Ohio School Board, when we asked them about that, they said, well, we already collect that data. What is your problem? We already collect it. And but this contract that I saw a piece of, just real briefly, said that there are more points of collection than we currently collect. So I don't even know if they know that.
So much of it just opens the door.
Right. The door is open and we don't know all of it. So I have to say, bottom line, we don't know. But I don't think we're psychos for letting our imagination go on some of this stuff.
Two more questions here and here.
Yes.
Yes, what is going to happen like with AP and the AP programs in high schools? And I forget the other name, that one that...
PSEO.
Well, there's one that's like international baccalaureate.
IB, International Baccalaureate.
Yeah.
That's only these slides.
What's going to happen with those?
That's all bad. In my opinion, that's all bad. The IB is, well, it teaches the UN agenda.
Well,
You have to learn the UN Constitution.
Yes.
I'm really not.
What about the AP classes people take so they can, when they go to college, you know,
I
they
know,
count?
I know. And my girls, they all took all the AP they could and tested out quite a few courses, so I would be concerned about that as well.
Yeah, I saw the IB program.
Oh, she's saying that she heard that IB's supposed to crowd out AP. I think
Oh,
again,
that's bad
we
news.
can think about that. Yeah, did you have a question?
Two quick questions.
Yeah.
Number one, this forum that you're going to have with Glenn Beck and David Barton, is it going to be televised, and if so, do you know when? Okay. Question number two,
Pardon me?
all these things are going to cost money, and I understand that it's going to be funded for a period of time. And what can we do? The only way school boards get money is if we give it to them, and we give them our money. And it's either vote yes, give them money, or no, don't give them money. And if we said, Arlington did, it's okay to say no, just vote no. And would that be a way of just to cut off the funds so that they are going to struggle to implement these things?
That was our mechanism for causing change in our district. So, I wouldn't suggest that UA residents make that same decision. It's totally up to you. But when we wanted change in our district, fundamental change, we said no to levy after levy after levy, 5 in a row. And that in and of itself said the community's not happy with the direction. So I think it's a powerful statement that you make at the ballot box. Unfortunately, in our district, the children were the instrument that were carved. And when I got on the school board, I said I will never allow that again. So everything we took from the kids during the campaign was put back. And I will never, under my watch, let that happen again. So is that it, George?
I think so, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your input, by the way. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, in front of you is just, and Kelly didn't ask me to do this, but in front
Okay, I'm
of you
glad you reminded me, because I want to
is
do what you're going
a
to do.
little brochure about the Ohio School Board Leadership Council. And it's a great organization. It really funds how Kelly can go around the state, and she puts on, you'll get some great emails. They put on education courses to teach people how to run for school board all across the state of Ohio. She's going to go see Glenn Beck. She needs money to do that. So if you look at this, it's www.osblc.org. Just go on there, and like me, I did this last year. You pay $40 and you're a community member of her organization. So I would encourage you to do that. Do it tonight when you get home. Yeah, I really encourage you to do that.
Thank you very much, because what Mark just said is very important. We've got to fight. We've got to do what's necessary, and it takes money to do that. But more important than money is finding that individual that's willing to go out there and suffer the slings and arrows that Dr. Kohls does. So please consider what Mark said and write a check out there, and let's tell your friends and neighbors about that, and let's get this thing up and running.
You can do it right online with a credit card.